If you want a relationship with a dominant man, you need to have the respect, the desire, and the security that is equivalent to how difficult his program is, how stretching his program is. Understand what I'm saying? You know, if a man only wants to have sex twice a week, right? That's the extent of his sex drive. Then it may not be something that stretches you beyond where your sex drive is at that moment. So your desire level doesn't have to be as high because his expectations are lower. If a man's program is that he likes to be very in line with social programming and being politically correct, then he's not going to stretch you far beyond your belief system and the things that you expect or the things that you already think or believe. So your respect level may not have to be as high because it's already going in line with the things that you view as respectful. Your security doesn't have to be very high if he's a man who doesn't have options, right? Or if he's a man who doesn't have a program that requires a certain vetting process, then your respect level, your desire level, your security level doesn't have to be as high for that particular man. But the difference is this: you can still build an emotional bond with this particular man, but you may not build, it's not impossible, but you may not build as deep or as intense or as exciting of a sexual bond or a masculine-feminine dynamic with this man because your polarity is really close. In a lot of these instances, those relationships will turn into prematurely integrated relationships to where if he needs to take a move that's going to be outside of something that you expected, it'll be very difficult for you to go along with that program, right? If his sex drive makes a spike, it may be difficult for you to go along with that. If you do step out of line and he needs to correct you, you may not respect him enough. You may not value him enough. You may not desire him enough for if things make a change. The less stretching a man's program is, the less feminine and submissive you have to be with that particular man. But the less feminine and submissive you are with the man, the looser that connection is, the less deep and stretching that connection is. And if we're looking at like an example I gave in my video, you know, when the cup runs low, cup theory part 3, why insecure women can't be feminine and submissive. It's because of this right here, right? I'm gonna give this example. The example goes like this. You know, a man's dominant masculine energy, his masculine energy, it represents his dick. So if he's stretching, right, he stretches you beyond what you are usually accustomed to, then that's girth. If he goes deep and touches those places inside of you that normally would be uncomfortable for people to touch, your cervix, you know, that'll be long, right? If he's unbending, unyielding, then that would be hard. You get what I'm saying? So the thing to understand about that is this: and if he has a lot of plans, or he has a lot of ideas, or he has a lot of things to plant inside of you, mindsets, ideologies, philosophies, that's his seed. And the thing to recognize about yourself as a woman is that one day you will get to the place where you're ovulating. Your feminine energy is ovulating because your feminine energy is like your vagina, right? Because your feminine energy represents your vagina and your vagina represents your feminine energy, then to the extent that you're able to stretch, you do your Kegels, right? To the extent that you desire him, you're able to be aroused. See, that arousal creates wetness, that's emotion. You know, it's scientifically proven that when you're having an orgasm, the frontal part of your brain, it shuts off and you stop being logical in that moment, right? And you start thinking with emotion, or you start thinking with pleasure and primal desires in that moment. The thing to think about is when you're ovulating, you're going to desire more of a masculine dominant man. This is also scientifically proven, right? That throughout most of the month, a woman may have more of a desire for a man who is more feminine in his features. That's where some of the jawline studies come from. I'm not the biggest guy on the jawline shit, right? My jawline's straight, but I got a beard, so you're not really going to see mine anyways, right? Unless I decide to cut it off. But the thing to understand is that as a woman, your feminine energy, it represents your vagina. When you get to a place where you become sexually awakened or your feminine energy awakens, you're going to desire more than you do in a place where you're insecure. You're going to desire more than you do in a place where you're unemotional. You're going to desire more stretching. You're going to desire more depth. You know, those things that used to hurt, like your cervix being hit. You know, that may become something to where the pleasure begins to mix with the pain, and then it becomes an even greater level of pleasure, right? Or if you get comfortable, not comfortable, but your desire level and your respect level gets high enough, and your submissiveness gets high enough, and your femininity gets high enough, and you're wet and you're aroused, right? And the trust is there. Then sometimes you're going to want and desire those different types of orgasms that you weren't getting from a guy just going in a couple inches. You may desire those A-spot, those O-spot orgasms, right? Those cervical orgasms, right? You know, a cervical orgasm would be like getting aroused by a man being aggressive with you. That would be like getting aroused or desiring a man even more when he goes deep and touches those things that otherwise used to make you uncomfortable. Understand what I'm saying? And if you choose a man on a basis of being in a place where you're insecure and you're not fully aroused in your feminine energy, your desire, your respect level isn't there, your submissiveness isn't there, then you may choose a man who, when you come to a place where your cup is full, right? And that's the emotion, that's feeling validated, that's feeling love, that's self-love, then he may no longer be what arouses you. Sometimes the man that a woman desires when a woman's cup is low is typically going to be a beta male. She's typically going to want a beta male in that place because he's not going to challenge her. He's not going to challenge her social programming. He's not going to challenge her feminine energy. He's not going to put her in that type of position, right? But you have to understand about yourself as a woman that when you get to that place, that's going to be what you truly want. So it's best to make sure that to the extent of how dominant and masculine the man is that you're with, if you have a dominant masculine man in your life who has a program, who has a plan, who shows he has a capacity to care for you, who could include you into his plans, you want to make sure that your cup is full enough so that your feminine, submissive energy is aroused and turned on so that you can respect and desire and submit yourself to things that wouldn't normally go along with your social programming. Things that may be outside of things that you originally thought you would be open to. And then you'll be open and experience new types of experiences that you never thought you would have. Right? But in order to do that, you need to have a certain level of baseline sexual attraction to that man. Right? You need to have a certain level of receptiveness to his masculine energy. You need to have a certain level of polarity to where you are submissive, where he's dominant. Where he moves forward, you yield. Right? Where he has aggression, you yield. Where he relaxes, right? Where he steps back in the stoicism, you move forward. Right? And you say, okay, cool, I need to tighten up. And you do your Kegels and you make sure you cling to that structure. And when you understand these things, right? It's certain things that just happen within masculine and feminine dynamics. Like, this is a mystery, right? It's a mystery. It's certain things that just come about. Because when you cling to that masculine energy, it's like doing the grip trick. Right? Those same Kegels, right? Which is studying, practicing, thinking about your desire for that man. right? Those same Kegels that make you able to take something smaller than you're accustomed to is the same Kegels that make you able to experience something larger than you're used to. And a man, you get what I'm saying? But when you learn how to control that grip trick, sometimes what you can do is you get on that motherfucker and you can ride it. And you can use those same Kegels, right? And those are things that you practice when you're working on your femininity. And you can do that grip trick on it, and then you can draw that seed out, right? And when you draw that seed out, he's going to be planting things into you. He's going to be sowing that seed into your womb. And then you give birth to these things that he's planting inside of you. So these are just some things to understand about masculine, feminine dynamics, dom, sub dynamics. When you understand these things, it's going to bring a certain level of power. It's going to bring a certain level of polarity. It's going to bring a certain level of synchronicity to your relationship. Because the sexual aspect of your relationship, as well as the energetic aspect, the mental, the emotional aspect, those things begin to become in sync. So just understand this. When it comes to dealing with the man, that you need to have a certain level of security that you're building up within yourself. You know, when you're on a lower level of security, sometimes people have to seek that security to reach a certain level first, and they might reach that through getting validation from beta males, right? And when you seek that through getting validation from beta males, understand that you can also pour yourself out to a beta male. And you may not want to do that. But if you know how to get smaller levels of validation, right? If you know how to work on your self-love, how to self-soothe, you know how to increase how you feel about yourself, but you also leave a little room in there to be stretched. Leave a little room in there to where you're secure within yourself, but you're secure enough within yourself to question your beliefs, to question your stances, to question the things that you've done before, and to allow a man to question those things, and then to bring those things to you, and to be open to new experiences. You have to do a certain level of that as work on yourself before you really encounter a masculine dominant man. Because there may be a baseline level of desire that he requires to experience from a woman before he can deal with her. Let's say you're in a place in your life where to have sex with a man immediately without any guarantee of a relationship is something that will cause you to feel insecure, something that will cause you to feel used. You don't have enough intrinsic reward in sexuality itself. Right? Because a dominant masculine man, he's going to be upfront and honest about his sexual intentions. Because the first thing he sees when he sees you is that he's sexually attracted to you. That's the first thing he sees when he sees you. And if he were to be completely honest, that's going to be part of what he says to you when he approaches you. When, somewhere very soon within your initial interactions, you're going to make sure that sexual connection is there, because a masculine dominant man, he doesn't respect you through respecting every word that comes out of your mouth. A dominant man respects you by understanding your nature as a woman. And when he understands your nature as a woman, you put yourself into a position to where you respect his nature as a man and know that what he says is what he says. But his respect for you is understanding your nature. Understanding your nature means that he knows that deep down you have that desire to be dominated. Deep down you have that desire to be stretched. Deep down you have that desire to be mentally stimulated in a way that stretches what you previously thought and believed and perceived. And by him understanding this, you have to make sure that you're in a position to where your cup has enough in it so that doesn't make you run dry. Here's another example. Sometimes it's going to be extended amounts of maybe a conversation, right? Sometimes it's going to be an extended length of sex. Maybe you like sex to last 15 minutes, right? But let's say you never truly had an orgasm like that from penetration. Maybe the first time it might take like 20 minutes, right? It might be quick if your desire level is high enough, but oftentimes it's going to be just taking advantage of new relationship energy, right? But if your desire level is not high enough and your cup is not filled enough to where you can stay lubricated, right? Understand that this is a mystery. This is some typology right here. Understand that when it comes to sexuality and sexual energy and how that relates to your feminine energy, that if you aren't aroused enough, if you don't desire him enough, if you don't take enough intrinsic pleasure out of sex, then when it goes on for a certain amount of time, you're going to dry up, right? If you can't sustain that desire, that's why you can't really fake it. You can't really fake that feminine energy because you're going to kill the momentum. And if he's hitting it for a certain amount of time, let's say he's talking to you for a certain amount of time, eventually that man is going to hit his rhythm. He's going to hit his stride. He's going to hit his second wind. And when he hits that stride, that's when he's really going to be digging into you. That's when he's really going to be busting it open, right? And when he's really beating that shit down, that's when you can enter subspace. That's when you can hit those particular places within sexuality as well, to where you're having that one long orgasm where multiple orgasms are happening during there, and you start to squirt and you start to have all these different experiences that have all these different emotional and mental and psychological effects on you. And it can be scary because you're going to feel that loss of control. But in that place, you're going to be opened up and you're going to be receptive to things you may not normally be receptive to. And if you dry up 15 minutes into sex, you may never get to experience that. So you have to make sure that your cup is full enough, right? Mentally, emotionally, with security. You have to learn how to self-validate. Once you have those experiences, you can still put the validation that he gives you on a certain pedestal to where it makes you feel really good. But you have to make sure you have a certain level in the tank already. Now, afterwards, he can give you some good self-care, right? Which is, how self-care can relate to this. I mean, not self-care, aftercare. How aftercare can relate to this is, let's say your feminine energy may have almost felt bruised, or maybe he was aggressive with you, right? He was aggressive with you and you yielded under that aggression. You submitted to that. Then afterwards, he talks to you. Now your energy is right. You're in more of a submissive feminine posture with your energy, with your body language, with the tone of your voice, with the way that you're responding, with the way that you're thinking. And then from that place, he gives you the things that you need. But the thing is this: if he leads with giving you the things that you need or the things that you desire, right? If he leads by giving you the things that you desire from a place of insecurity, being comfort, being emotional validation, then you may never get truly to the place where you experience going into subspace. You may never truly get to the place where you learn to be feminine and submissive with a man, because it may be transactional, right? It's like I'm talking about Brody scale of sexual attraction. It's like Brody scale of sexual attraction, right? When we talk about a 7 level, you need that, and it kind of goes in line with foreplay, right? Or it kind of goes in line with like oral sex. If you're a woman and you're dealing with a man and his dick alone can make you come hard, consistently, and then he also gives you some head on top of that or after the fact, like let's say, it's impromptu session and out of nowhere. Because if you're in a 9 level of sexual attraction, then you're aroused by his presence. So he isn't required to do foreplay before you start having sex. When you're in that type of position, that man can take you out of nowhere, spontaneity, be spontaneous, start fucking this shit out of you, make you come a couple times. Then with no warning, boom, start eating it. Make you come once or twice eating it, then go back in there, make you come again. See, this is where you go into these moments where you have all of these emotional and sexual and orgasmic experiences. And these same things can relate to your feminine energy. These same things can relate to your femininity, right? Now, what does an orgasm do? A lot of people talk about how an orgasm doesn't necessarily do anything as far as, what's it called? They say that an orgasm doesn't do anything as far as biology. That's not completely true, because when a woman has an orgasm, her cervix, it dips. And it dips like it's trying to soak up whatever's in there. Right? So if your cervix dips to soak up whatever is in there, then there's even more of a greater chance of getting pregnant. Right? And I'm not saying this to scare nobody, like you're going to get pregnant just because you did that. No, what I'm saying is that when you're in this particular type of situation, this particular type of predicament, then the ideas and the things that he's planning inside of you as a man, his ideas, his vision, his program, those things will be something that you even further are able to see and tap into, and they're more easily able to be implanted inside of you. You get that emotional experience to where you see his vision, and that vision begins to become your own, and then it becomes born inside of you. And as this vision is born inside of you, now you're in a position, now you're in a predicament to where his vision is no longer simply his vision. His vision is your vision as well. And when that vision gets on the same page, now you are in a position to where he doesn't have to fight with you to be on this program, right? He doesn't have to fight with you to be feminine and submissive. You are naturally going to begin to do the things that push forward his program. So like, let's say it's just like sex. You know, if you're a woman and you're having orgasms on a consistent basis, the sex is good, the pleasure is good, your security's there, you're aroused, then you'll never feel like sex is something a man is trying to get from you, right? You'll never feel that way, because you're going to want sex from him, because you're going to desire that seed, you're going to desire that pleasure, you're going to desire those orgasms, you're going to desire his masculine essence, right? These are some things to think about, right? And now let's say we're talking about oral sex. So I'm going to jump back on it to the other side. You know, at a 7 level sexual attraction, because, you know, there's a lot of similarities between a 7 and a 9 level of sexual attraction. They're in two completely different things, but some of the actions look the same, but how you feel about those actions is completely different. So at a 7 level, you may be giving him head from time to time, you know, to either speed up sex, or you may be giving him head, you know, to arouse yourself. Now, that's more of a thing at a higher level, but you may be giving him head as a way to avoid having to have sex because you don't want to have it as often, right? On an 8 level of sexual attraction, sex and its equivalent exchange. So you more so want the dick. You may need the head to warm you up, you know, to loosen you up so you can get the dick. But at a 9 level, the dick alone is good enough. At a 9 level and a 9 and up level, you start dipping into those areas to where you may even have orgasm from sucking dick alone. What is that like? That's like if you're cooking for a man, or you're doing things that are domesticated, or you're helping him with his vision. Now it's something you actively desire as part of your own vision. So when you do these things, when you act on these things, it no longer feels like something you're doing for him or in exchange. It's something you do because you want to do. It's not, he asked me to cook for him, so I guess I'll do it. It's no, like, I really want to cook for you today. Like, what do you want? Because I want that. I want to see that look on your face when you enjoy something that I did for you out of my heart because I desire to do it. It's devotion. It's acts of devotion. It's acts of, dare I even say, worship. Some people are going to take that wrong, but it's cool. You know, hey, let them who have ears hear. You feel me? So when we're talking about this particular type of perspective, it's important that you have enough security within yourself to where you don't overly try to require and demand for him to validate you, right? And where you don't need him to validate you before you can get into it, because it's going to be much more rewarding for you to get that after you've earned it. It's going to be much more rewarding for you to get that, knowing that he's doing it because he enjoys it and not doing it because you require it. It's going to be more enjoyable knowing that he's doing those things from a selfish place, from his own desire to please you, right? Or doing those things as a way of showing his appreciation for you. Then you requiring him to do those things because that's what you want or because what you feel like you need. And then you're in a place where you can't really trust how much he desires you, right? So this is Brody, just talking about this analogy, talking about security, talking about the things necessary. This analogy, these types and shadows of sex and feminine and masculine energy. I'm out.